Hello, yes, it's Andrew yet again. Today we're at episode 154. In our previous episodes, Jesus has triumphantly come into Jerusalem. He has cleansed the temple and returned to Bethany. And we pick up the narrative then in chapter 21 of Matthew, verse 18. In the morning, when he returned to the city, this is from Bethany, he was hungry. And seeing a fig tree by the side of the road, he went to it and found nothing at all on it but leaves. Then he said to it, "May no fruit ever come from you again." And the fig tree withered at once. When the disciples saw it, they were amazed, saying, "How did the fig tree wither at once?" Jesus answered them, "Truly I tell you, if you have faith and do not doubt, not only will you do what has been done to the fig tree, but even if you say to this mountain, 'Be lifted up and thrown into the sea,' it will be done. Whatever you ask for in prayer with faith, you will receive." This passage has in the past anyway, left me with questions and few answers. We see Jesus heading out in the morning to return to Jerusalem. They have spent the night in Bethany, atop the Mount of Olives, presumably in the home of Martha, Mary and Lazarus. Apparently, Jesus has skipped breakfast, assuming they even had breakfast. I often wonder where they slept. I've often mused on this question. Presumably society was geared for large crowds descending on a community, because day trips with fast cars, with trains, with buses and with air travel were not possible. And given the requirements to attend various religious feasts, there must have been mechanisms within society for hosting such large numbers at a pinch. Maybe this is simply a first world 21st century question where we expect separate rooms, comfortable beds and ensuite facilities. For them, settling down together in the shelter out back with a bit of straw and animals might have been regarded as the gift for a good night's sleep. I don't know. But this is simply delaying tactics on my part. The questions that nag at me need to be surfaced. And the first one is this poor fig tree. I'm struggling, and I actually work through it in the process of this because I do a little bit of research. I'm struggling to find a rationale for Jesus cursing it. All it's done is to be itself, to be a fig tree. Is that not enough? Sure, it has no figs. Does that justify it being cursed? If it was supposed to have figs, there may be a lesson here about fruitfulness. Yet the parallel account in Mark's Gospel tells us that it wasn't yet the season for figs. If Jesus telling us that we need to be fruitful in season and out of season. This, for me, is probably the most troubling passage in all of Jesus' actions. So in desperation, I turned to William Barclay because I couldn't, in myself, come up with an explanation that satisfied. And William Barclay, in his series of, I'll just show you here, the Daily Study Bible series, Matthew, for example, has two little books like this, 2 volumes, and he's got the whole Testament. And I think probably most of the whole of the New Testament, probably most of the Old Testament as well. They're worth having on your bookshelf. A very good, very accessible resource. William Barclay, Daily Study Bible. Anyway, so I turned to him, and I discovered that he has the same problem that I do. So he has done quite a lot of work, and he goes up a few what I suspect are blind alleys, but not going to engage with those. What he comes down to is this. He says that at that time of the year, for a fig tree to be in full leaf, which was April, a week before Passover, indicated that the tree was diseased, that the tree was not going to produce fruit ever. There was actually something wrong with the trees, because fig trees at that time of year don't come into full leaf. It was, to all intents and purposes, useless and already doomed. And I thought, I can go with that. It's fairly neat and tidy. I assume it's true and that it's accurate. William Barclay wouldn't put it there if it wasn't. And that's kind of satisfying. Okay, that's a point. The other thing about it, as he points out, that I'm not going to go to, but is that it's symbolic. And that's also true, because these were highly significant days. We remember a day before Jesus comes into Jerusalem on a donkey. He could have come to a donkey at any other time, and a number of people rode on donkeys, but there was a sense that this time that everybody knew that his time had come. There's something significant. This is one of those sort of kind of kairos, appointed time moments. And everybody, as he's coming in, is hailing him as the Messiah, as the coming one there, celebrating his coming to Jerusalem. And so we're recognised as we're moving into Holy Week that there's a fair amount of symbolism that is embedded in all of this. And the cursing of the fig tree then also has a symbolic, and I want to suggest a prophetic nature associated with it. The fig tree represents Israel at the time. It may have looked to be in full leaf, yet it was fruitless and would remain so. The nation was not going to embrace Jesus as the Messiah. They were looking for a different kind of Messiah than the one that he was offering them. They were looking for a military deliverer, whereas Jesus was offering a different kind of Messiahship, one that wasn't based on the top-down exercise of power, but a kingdom of heaven kind of Messiahship where everyone is valued, one that focused on the well-being and fruitfulness of everyone, so that the whole would be enhanced and prosper. And again, we come back to Paul's picture of the body of Christ, where there is no first and last. There is none who is not valued and honoured, because if one is diminished, we are all diminished. The tree may have looked great, but its basic purpose of fruitfulness was never going to be fulfilled. It has become incapable of bearing fruit. And so there's a kind of prophetic thing that's going on here with Jesus. And it's a warning to all of us. We're often more concerned about appearances, about how things look, than we are about the realities. As long as it looks okay, it is okay. So that's, I think, something for each of us to be considered. Many of us are very good at appearance management, so that we look like we're being the good Christians, but in actual fact there are a whole lot of things that are going on in our lives, attitudes that we hold and have, that are miles away from this kingdom of heaven kind of vision that Jesus is offering. There's a second question in the statement regarding faith. And that's about throwing mountains into the sea. And I became aware as I was sitting with that earlier today that my response is like always is a kind of sense of, yeah, right. Like that happens. I've not seen any evidence of anyone anywhere doing anything that in any way approximates what Jesus is saying. And yet I can't, for that reason, simply dismiss it. Perhaps this side of eternity, none of us will ever be capable of exercising this kind of faith. The purity of soul, the depth of confidence in God, the love that embodies the way of Jesus, does not yet dwell in any fallen, yet redeemed human being. And that's where I kind of settle with it. And perhaps when and if it does, or has, the last thing that such a person who possessed those qualities, who possessed that grace of faith and of loving and joyful obedience of Jesus, if there have been such people, the last thing that such a one would want to do is to exercise their power in such a way. And maybe this is the point. Although kingdom power is capable of such deeds, there needs to be an overarching redemptive purpose for it to be exercised in that way. One that is rooted in the love of God and the desire of wholeness and belonging for all. So, perhaps there are and have been such saints, and I use that in the way that we generally understand it rather than the biblical way, among us. I know I'm not one of them. And if asked, they would simply ask us, why would I need to do that? That doesn't conform with the way of Jesus. It's not the path to life. It's not the way of the cross. It's not the way of generosity and love. It's the way of showing off. It's the way of demonstrating that you're somebody. This is not the way of Jesus. Anyway, it's just a few thoughts. I hope you find it helpful. I have, so maybe it's just for me. God bless you.